last years of the 19th century, that human affairs were being watched from the timeless worlds of space. No one could have dreamed we were being scrutinized as someone with a microscope studies creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water. Few men even considered the possibility of life on other planets. And yet, across the gulf of space, minds immeasurably superior to ours regarded this Earth with envious eyes. And slowly and surely, they drew their plans against us.
Broadcasting live
from a tiny studio somewhere in North America.
This is Dark Matters Radio Live. And now I give you your host,
the silverback of ufology.
Here's Don Ecker.
And greetings, salutations, all that good stuff. Welcome back to Dark Matters Radio. Tonight we have, as per usual, a brand new edition, and joining me are my two co-hosts, Mr. Gerry Kissle, Mr. Mark Center, and tonight we are bringing back a former guest, Manny from Area 52, who, if you recall, a couple of months back, we had on and did a very deep dive into Luis Elizondo from ATIP fame. And tonight, we're going to be taking another look at a recent News Nation documentary with a purported Air Force a pilot who recovered suspected alien craft, the Great Egg video. And we're going to be talking about that. So with that being said, let's jump right into the show. Mark, Gerry, welcome back, guys. How you doing?
Not so bad. Not too bad. I love Mark is just like this little tiny guy in his studio. I love that. I wish I could get my camera that far away. My room's not big enough.
And if you could zoom in there, you'd see some of his guitars.
I know he's got great guitars and an amp there on the right.
I got an amp.
Oh, that's not an amp.
And 1,500 CDs because I'm a boomer. So hey,
what is that, a Fender amp? Yeah, you're a boomer like me. So is that a Fender amp down there?
Yeah, I got a whole bunch of happy horse shit. So yes.
Oh, my fiance's here, and I'm a confused.
It's not just horse shit; it's happy horse shit.
That's right, Don.
Happy
so, things are getting crazy, Don. As glorious as things might be for some people in the country, when it comes to UFOs and UAPs, it's crazy, right? I mean, it's insanity.
And allow me to ask when it hasn't been.
Well, but it's always been a little off the radar, more so, like in the 90s and the big flap we had then. I mean, we were involved in all that, so we thought it was everywhere. But now, with Congress involved and all these podcasts, endless podcasts to let Greer on there and pontificate his horse shit that he does. He's been making these claims since the early 90s, no proof, no nothing. And then Rogan and all these guys who are otherwise intelligent guys but don't have the background to ask the right questions and call them out.
They
won't do it because they want to have them on again. It's just it's way worse.
Yeah, they offer no challenge to him. But you know what? I'm just not feeling it, Mark. How do you really feel about Greer?
I wouldn't give him a reach around.
Well, okay. Now that we have that squared away.
Yeah.
let's bring Manny on and see how he's doing. Manny, how the heck are you doing?
I'm great, Don. Thanks for having me back. There's been a lot going on, like you said. I think Mark was saying how it's just it's crazy time in ufology, with Congress being involved in everything, the mainstream media attention that's going on, films, documentaries, everything. I mean, I don't know how many people watched the Super Bowl yesterday, but I counted, I think, 5 UFO and alien commercials that were displayed during the Super Bowl, which was kind of interesting, that things have become so mainstream that everybody's talking about UFOs and aliens and
well,
UAP.
I gotta tell you, my team, okay, the team that I've been loyal to for the most part, all right, since about 1968 or 9 was the Pittsburgh Steelers. They weren't there. And the coach that they got, I got to tell you, several years back, he kind of pissed me off. And I even stopped watching the Steelers for a while. But we all remember when that what was that guy's name that always took a knee, wore the cops or pigs socks?
Copernic.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah,
that guy. Ever since that guy, and I'm a military vet, all right, served 2 tours in Southeast Asia, got banged up over there pretty good. And so I take it seriously, all right, when people disrespect the American flag and the American anthem. And the Steelers coach pussied out. Instead of allowing his guys to come out onto the field before the national anthem, he kept them locked in the locker room so nobody could say or see nothing. After it was all said and done, then he let them come out. And I got to tell you, that upset me. I knew Rocky Bleier. You guys know who Rocky Bleier was?
He's a hero of mine, yeah.
Okay.
I read his
Rocky
book.
Bleier was a bang-up Steeler football player, went into the Army, went to Vietnam, got wounded, came back, worked his way back up until he rejoined the team, and these sons of bitches disrespect the flag. I'm sorry, okay? That's my little mini rant for right now, but it never sat with me good. But to answer your question, Manny, no. I didn't watch the game yesterday. I watched Blade and Blade 2.
There you
on
go.
The Sci-Fi Channel.
Nice.
There you go.
That's what I did. Okay.
Both had a better ending.
Back to the issues that we're on, and look, I know I had my issues with Art Bell, and granted, he put a light on some interesting cases. I will say that, sure. He also would just let people pontificate horse shit constantly. And then he would say, I'm not a reporter, I am a reporter. And I do have the same issue with, even as much as Rogan does a good job and other people like him, maybe the Art Bell process hasn't done us any favors of just putting these assholes in front of a microphone and letting them tell tall tales, and nobody questions them. Now I know Manny does, and very few, and Steve Cambian and stuff, they'll do it, but very few people will actually ask the questions. The guy up here in the corner, right, I don't know, I'm confused. Don Ecker, they won't even come on his show because they know ahead of time. Right? Lou knows all of these people. Greer was on there once, and I think he hung up on you or something, Don, when he was on with you or something.
No, Phil Klass hung up on
right. That's my biggest problem with this. It should be entertaining, but not entertainment, if you get my drift. And it's just I'm just so fed up. And that Greer guy, I'll stop on him now, but I am so fed up with this guy getting these.
They're all part
perches.
of the cult, though, Mark. They're all part of that cult.
Well, no, I get it, but it's for him. It's been going on since like '93. and then I'll stop with him. Manny, take it away.
Yeah, Greer's been at it a long time, and in fact, when Elizondo hit the scene, him and Greer butted heads quite a bit. As
Sure.
Elizondo was trying to take the reins and take control, and Greer was probably feeling that his narrative control was being threatened. He challenged at one point Elizondo to a live debate. The response that Elizondo had was, "I don't deal with terrorists," which I thought was pretty damn weird.
What?
Dr. Greer's many things, but I would never call him a terrorist. I mean, he weeps in his documentaries. He's like, he wants to be a bleeding heart for all of humanity. Like he's not. I wouldn't call him a terrorist.
No.
Scammer
no.
maybe, but not a terrorist.
No, I'd also add grifter to that.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, he's not above, flying a helicopter up and dropping a flare out of it and selling it to people as a UFO,
Or telling people that he's invited into skiffs. That's the last thing I saw. Was, oh yes, I was invited into a skiff, and they told me. Why would anybody of any notoriety or who knows information, true information, invite that guy into a skiff? Why?
I don't think they legally could unless he held a security clearance. I'd have to check
and
on
they
that,
wouldn't anyway. I mean,
Yeah,
come on,
yeah.
come on.
That's just kind of a non-starter for me, and that's the big buzzword nowadays is everyone's like, oh, I'm going to go into the skiff. I'm going to do that. It's like, look, anything you're talking about in a skiff is above board, legitimate and sanctioned, and is not off the books, illegal, black budget program, because those aren't talked about in skiffs. Those aren't talked about at all.
Right.
So it's kind of a non-starter for me again too when you get into that stuff.
Right.
There's a lot going on now. We've got this Jake Barber News Nation thing. If people are watching the news tomorrow, there's supposed to be a big announcement by Congresswoman Luna and chairman of the one of the committees, Comer, where they're UFO Twitter speculating it's not going to be UAP disclosure. It's not. They've got some new oversight committee that they're going to announce tomorrow. And so it's kind of interesting to see how people just run with it. And kind of going back to what you were saying earlier, Mark, about giving people the platform to just speak their minds and tell these tall tales and then let the viewers decide what's true.
Right.
That's just kind of horse shit. That's how people get, they know that they're peddling garbage to the masses. And that leads us into conspiracy theoryville and into, it's walking us down the path to Mike Judge's Idiocracy. If you've seen that movie, I mean,
great movie.
We're just hand in hand into having Hector Camacho be our next president, and so we're in trouble. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like Terry Crews, but he might not make the best president. We probably don't want an ex-wrestler and a boxer in the White House. Maybe we should have someone who's making decisions for the people, by the people, of the people. So disclosure. People are thinking it's going to come tomorrow. It's not. This new thing is. I don't know what they're going to announce tomorrow. Some new oversight committee. I'll be watching it to find out. I don't think it has anything to do with UFOs, UAP, but maybe it does, and so maybe I'll be shocked.
Notice it got a little quiet in the UAP department.
Well, let me just say this. I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I know whereas what I am speaking, the UFO topic from day number one, going back to Roswell, 1947, there is what is known in the IC a core secret. Okay? Now, what is that core secret? I don't know. I've speculated in part about that in a paper I wrote last year, but be that as it may, that core secret is surrounded by a special access program, a SAP. That means that unless anybody is read into it, in other words, you have a security clearance sufficiently high enough and you have a need to know and you're read into the program, you ain't going to know. Nobody's going to know. Donald Trump will never know.
And you can't speak about
Barry Obama never knew. Jimmy Carter never knew. Okay, Bill Clinton never knew. Now, one guy that might have known, maybe, was George H.W. Bush, because he headed the CIA back in the 70s.
Right.
He might have known. Dwight Eisenhower might have known. Richard Nixon, I'm kind of iffy on him. whether he knew or not, although he was Eisenhower's VP. But guys, look, it's like masturbation. It feels good while you're engaged in it.
Yes,
But the
yes,
ultimate
Don.
truth,
More.
you ain't getting nowhere. Okay?
I don't know. Maybe you're doing it wrong, Don.
Yeah. Well,
So, Manny, I hear that you've started to look in on that egg guy. So, if you want to talk about that, but give the people out there a quick once-over on what his new claim to fame is.
Crazy
Sure.
guy.
So the egg guy is a gentleman by the name of Jake Barber. He's a former Air Force member who has been taken under the wing of somebody we all know and love so well by the name of Ross Coolfart, and given a platform on News Nation, which has been a very uncritical platform with a large reach to sensationalized viewers who love the woo and the clickbait and the egregious claims with no evidence, which unfortunately is what we've got here. When you look at the interview, so Jake Barber came on News Nation with Ross Coulthart. They had a roughly 2.5 hour unedited interview that they released after the original interview came out. I think it was 30 minutes. It was heavily edited and sensationalized. Barber made a number of just amazing, fantastic claims in his interview that lacked all sorts of evidence, any sort of evidence. I mean, like, he made all kinds of crazy claims. I mean, the most egregious of which, in my opinion, was that he was part of a UFO crash retrieval program to collect what he defined as an egg-shaped UAP or UFO. Unfortunately, during the News Nation interview, they played this footage that everyone thought was from Jake Barber's crash retrieval of this egg UFO dangling under a helicopter on a cable. A lot of people are familiar with it. If you're not, you can look it up on Google right now. It's probably the first thing that'll come up if you put in egg UFO. But what I want people to keep in mind is that that's not actually Barber's footage. They make a very, very small footnote in the interview that says that this was footage sent in from a third party, an anonymous third party, and that it's essentially B-roll for Barber's story because it looks similar to his. And we can talk about that. We're going to get into here in a little bit. We'll play a clip from a MUFON ex-Air Force investigator and pilot who rips the whole video to shreds. But unfortunately, it's not even Barber's video. This is something else we're looking at. Of an alleged UAP recovery. But Barber's claims are pretty fantastic. He's gone so far as to say that he can channel UFOs with his mind. He can summon them, and he did this on some kind of television program or something that he's working on with a company that he has where they're going to work with the UAP task force and the government, all this shit. And they're sitting out in the field and they summon a dot in the sky that looks to me like either a planet, a plane, or a drone flying by with a light on. It doesn't look like anything fantastic. It doesn't look like anything supernatural. It doesn't look like anything extraterrestrial. But they supposedly summoned this UAP with their mind. And so he's kind of taking a page out of the CE5 Dr. Greer playbook and saying that they can do this. And then he's introducing this psionic element where they're saying that there's a mental connection to UAP and UFOs, which we've all heard for a long time, which goes to the CE5 thing. So again, here's another whistleblower, kind of like Elizondo, whistleblower, who's repackaged a lot of UFO trope into a nice new package and been like, trust me, it's all true because I say so, and here's my credentials. Huge problem with Jake Barber and his credentials. They don't agree with this story. His credentials just don't sync up. Like, the biggest thing that I found is there's a buddy of mine named The Average Chris on Twitter, who's also he's active Air Force, has been in the Air Force, but he took umbrage with Gary's story, Jake Barber's story. Said, look, I have a problem with this guy's story. I've seen his DD-214, which, as you know, if you're in the military, should document your military service and what you've done. Yeah, what a DD-214 does. The problem with Jake's DD-214 is that it shows he was only in the military for 6 years. And here's Jake Barber going on and saying, no, that's just my cover role. My cover role was
that.
Right. So that's exactly what he says. He says, okay, so I was in the military for 6 years where I was assigned to my cover role as an aircraft mechanic, a helicopter mechanic. And then he says, but my real job was as a combat controller. I was a tier 1 operator, special forces for the Air Force.
Okay, this is falling into Don Shipley territory. We've had him on as a guest, Don and I.
I would love to see Don dig into his story because I think he would just rip it apart. I think he would.
Absolutely. I'll email him about it if you want because, my God, saying he's a tier 1 operator, what the fuck ever.
Right. And they've, I think Chris has gone so far as to show his claims and his DD-214 to a tier 1 operator, somebody who was a combat controller, and say, look, is this what his DD-214 should look like? And the answer from everyone who's looked at it is absolutely not. This is not what it would look like. That's not how the systems work. Like if he was allegedly special forces,
the rest of my DD-214 is top secret, whatever.
Right. And that's what he's claiming. So, and again, it's unfalsifiable. It's pretty much like Elizondo, where like, oh, of course they're going to say it doesn't exist. It's top secret. Of course they're going to deny that it's real because it's top secret, but it's not. It should be on there, and it's simply not. So his stories right off the bat is kind of a non-starter. For one, they misrepresented it on News Nation, where they played that B-roll of footage from another source, which we'll get into anyways. We'll look at it because we
I like the even faker ones where it's like an actual egg.
And those look, I hate to say it, those look more realistic than the one we saw on News Nation.
We played them a week ago, 2 weeks ago. I played some of those videos. There.
Also, in that original show, they conflated that footage with him having some sort of love experience at the same time, and I didn't watch the longer one at that point, and people corrected me. I think Gerry did, and he said, no, that's two things they're conflating together. I mean, what the hell?
Yeah, that's what I mean about the tricky editing during the original interview versus the unedited one. But again, even him claiming that he had an emotional response to the UAP sighting. I mean, I can sit out all night till the sun comes up and have an emotional response when the sun comes up, but that doesn't mean that the sun isn't eliciting the emotional response with me. It doesn't mean that I have a psionic connection with the sun. It just means that as an emotional creature called a human being, I had an emotional response to something that I saw that was profound. The sunrise. Right. So if he believed he was seeing something profound like a UAP or a UFO, sure, he could have an emotional response, but that doesn't mean that they're linked, so.
Right. But they also purposely would muddy the waters, knowing that a lot of people are never even going to know the longer uncut was released. And then on Twitter and all that, they go up there and say, well, there wasn't anybody on the ground to support crew because they would have been affected by the same thing. But it was just totally conflated. So they're
right.
So they're basically, I don't know what the term is, but they know people aren't going to go watch the longer one. And it's
and muddying the waters is the classic, is the textbook definition of what they did here. They made his story so muddy, knowing that it was going to take people like us weeks and months to figure out what was going on and to sift through all the horse shit and to get to the chops. Yeah. But the chops are that there's no there. There's nothing there. At the end of the day, what you've got is a guy named Barber who's got these crazy war stories and no evidence to support them. And there's a mountain of growing evidence to dispute them or to refute them. So his stories, I mean, at this point, it's just insane that we even have to keep even talking about him, but we have to, because this community that we're in has embraced him now because of the bona fides that he says that he has, but also because of the endorsement that he's got from people like Lou Elizondo,
and Greer. Greer said like he's number one.
Right. And here's another one of Dave Grush's 40 witnesses that we're finding out was someone who was borrowed from Greer's disclosure project or Greer's research, and so a lot of these people who they said were, if this is the caliber of their inside firsthand witnesses, there is absolutely nothing here to discuss anymore. We're wasting our damn time. At this point, we don't need any more anecdotal evidence. We have, as we're going to find out here in the upcoming film called, what's it called? The Age of Disclosure by Dan Farah of Farah Films. 34 former defense officials are going to come out and say the same thing. Aliens are real. The government's covering it up. Trust me, bro. My word is good. There's no evidence of it. And these 34 officials are going to be Chris Mellon, Lou Elizondo, Hal Puthoff. It's going to be Gary Nolan. It's going to be Jake Barber. It's going to be all the same Dave Grush. It's going to be all the same people that we've heard about. And they're not going to have a lick of evidence to support their claims, which to me, I don't need to hear it 34 times. Like there's no mountain of anecdotal evidence that's going to get me to believe that something's true. I want to see it. I want to see the crash retrieval program. I want to see the UFO, or wheel a damn alien body in here and show it to me. Something that's DNA can be tested and we can look at, because there's so much time to be wasted on this anecdotal evidence and claims. It's just it's just a waste of time. At the end of the day, we're not going to get anywhere. We're going from science-based observation and discovery into just straight up belief. And I'm not here to argue about people's beliefs. I don't want to argue with somebody about their belief about UFOs and gods and the lady and aliens and demons. Like that's just it's belief, and that's fine, but that should be kept for like philosophy class in church,
Manny, real quick. Have you ever yourself personally had a sighting of an unknown?
No.
Okay. With that being said, if I may, what is it that got you originally interested in this, that you've actually done quite a stellar job, what I've seen that you do so far? It's been stellar. But what was it that I guess encouraged you to jump into this swamp?
So I've always been a science fiction fan since I was a kid. Like I would watch Star Trek. I grew up on Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Nerd.
The television series with Mark Singer. All of this sci-fi stuff has been my chop since I was a kid. And so I've always kind of felt like there's something to it, that the world, or that the universe reality is bigger than just our small little pale blue dot, as Sagan said, and that's what got me interested in it. And since I have done that, I've gone down all of these rabbit holes. I've gone down the Roswell rabbit hole. I've gone down the Del Rio rabbit hole. I've gone down, the Rendlesham Forest, Bentwaters, rabbit hole. I've gone down all these different rabbit holes, and at the end of the day, I find the common thread is lack of evidence and anecdotal stories, which makes me upset. But what really got me motivated in it was that I felt like there was technology that was being suppressed that could be the benefit to mankind. And I was really hoping that at the end of this rabbit hole, there would be something there that could be disclosed that would benefit everybody, that would bring an end to the energy crisis on this planet, that would give us clean, free energy, that would give us a cure for cancer, that would solve a lot of humanity's problems that we're having. And that was my motivation in this. That was what I wanted to kind of get into and dig out and see if it's true or not. And when I came into this, I thought that it was, and I was angry. I was angry because I felt like if there was an 80-year cover-up of technology that could have changed the last 4 generations of humanity's lives for the better, then they owed it to bring that out. They owed it to rip the Band-Aid off. It's owed, we've paid our price in blood. We've lost too many good people to things like that, to diseases that could be cured, to energy crisis, to things like that. And that's what really, really focused me on it. And so when I kind of found out, when I came to the realization that a lot of that, in my opinion, is not true, that a lot of it is, when you peel away all the smoke and dust, there's some really clever human engineering out there, and has to do with the fact that we've spent an insane, unfathomable amount of money on this stuff over the last 80 years, that we do have some really cool technology under lock and key that might look alien if it was to be released, but is not alien in nature, and that it's not going to lead to, like I said, a cure for cancer. It's not going to lead to free energy for the planet. So that really left me kind of disturbed, jaded, and a little bit upset. At people who come out like Lou Elizondo, at people who come out like Jake Barber and promise all these big disclosures and manipulate people and are predatory and abuse people's desire to believe in something bigger and better than themselves, and manipulate them for their own devices. That's what keeps me going in it, is to hopefully reach some people that are out there getting manipulated by these people, and to stop them and to free them from that mindset.
Well, let me give you an example. Excuse me. A few days ago, Mark and I had a conversation on the phone, and we were discussing some of these concepts of advanced technology. And he asked me a question: what did I think would happen if some of this technology were released? We were at the time talking about 0 point energy. And I said, well, Nikola Tesla was working on something very similar to that. Maybe it was the same thing. And when he died, suddenly the authorities swooped in, grabbed every piece of paper that guy had, took it away. Nobody's ever seen it. But let's play the what if game. What if we did have introduced tomorrow 0 point energy? Would we all live happily ever after? Hell no. What's the first thing that would happen? World economies would collapse. Why? What's the grease that makes economy go around right now? And the Greens hate this. Oil.
Lubrication.
What happened? Baby. What would happen if suddenly we didn't need oil? Okay? Because we could put a device in our current cars that would operate from zero technology. Now, let's not forget what Thomas Edison told Nikola Tesla when Tesla was working for him. Okay? You can't do that. The 0 point, this free energy. You can't do it. Well, why not? How are we going to put a price tag on it? How are we going to charge for it if everybody has free energy? Which, if you get right down to it, Edison was correct.
Yep.
All right. To hell with humanity, but yeah, how do you charge for that? And people would be out of jobs. Look at some of the jobs that would suddenly go belly up. Long distance trucking, okay? Unless they were able to tap into 0 point, how would you get produce from point A to point B? Okay? What would happen to things like restaurants? What would happen to things, you see what I'm saying, gas stations?
Yep.
They would go belly up. And suddenly you would have millions of idle people on your hands, probably pissed off. And then what happens? You got chaos. Same thing with the UFO thing. If you believe that they're going to release disclosure, okay, I got a bridge that I'd like to sell you up in New York, because that's about as far as you're going to get. I'm done.
Yeah. The question I asked him was based off an interview that Ben David did with Greer. And again, it's another one of those situations where he doesn't really know what questions asked, but he is a businessman. And when Greer said that the 0 point would do this and that, he fought back on that, and how he positioned it was, if that was to happen, tens of millions of people would they would lose their jobs and such, right? It would really screw things up. So I asked Don the question, if we have a Will Smith type inexplicable front yard experience, like from the movie, oh my God, it's real, or the 0 point to be released, what would make a bigger impact on society? And I said, other than the fundamentalist and things, I don't think the disclosure would make that big of a difference to the regular people. But if you basically shut down or moved over to 0 point from oil, especially too quickly, solar, right? What we've gone through here, being pushed into getting rid of your gas cars and stuff, that would make a huge impact on the world immediately, right? So there's two ways to look at this, though. So is that why it hasn't been released, if it does exist, right? I don't think they're smart enough not to release it, because look what they've done with solar. I don't think they're smart enough. They would just push it out there and say, now you're going to do this because Greta said so.
Yeah, and I think the argument of catastrophic disclosure in that case is, I understand the philosophical ramifications of it, but I think in practice, I think it would be more along the lines of the release of nuclear power. I think it would be more along that lines. It would look something like that. Whereas instead of having these nuclear power plants that pop up, all over that are powering things, you would have these 0 point energy plants that pop up and plug into the existing grid, and then they power everything from there, and they charge you just the same way. So it would kind of look like that. The only difference would be that you would have something that's cleaner. And I think we'll see stable fusion before that. I think we're going to see that a lot sooner than later. I know they've been promising it for a long time, and they're
Right.
always it's like disclosure. It's always coming tomorrow. It's always coming tomorrow.
Right.
You know, like free beer tomorrow, folks.
That's
you know, like
right. That's the name of Gerry's band, right?
yeah.
So,
Nice.
so do you have more? I don't know how deeply you dove into this new guy, but do you have more stuff to tell us about this guy, like his background or people that are surrounding him? Because when Grush came out, then we started seeing photos of him from 2 years previous of him at like conventions and stuff with Lou and those guys that nobody had ever seen, right? So do you have stuff like that?
I don't know that we have anything very, that's similar to that other than Greer's statements that he was working with Greer, that he was one of his whistleblowers. So,
right.
Take that for what you will, that he was probably also he may have also been involved with Dave Grush. He might have been one of those 40 whistleblowers that was turned on to Dave Grush. He might not be. We don't really know. And these people are less than transparent about those sorts of things. They're deliberately vague about it. They don't really want to tell us what they're doing. So they like to hide it. And then they love to let us waste our time speculating about that type of stuff, but Dave Grush it was interesting. Like you said, like he supposedly was a whistleblower, had nothing to do with these folks. And then it turns out, no, that he actually had been working with Eric Davis for years, that he was seen at different UFO and science fiction conventions with Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp, palling around with Jay Stratton and all those, the same cast of people. It's like you can't go too far in this whistleblower disclosure movement until you see the same names keep popping up every time. It's always one generation, and so if somebody new comes out and they're related to these same people, I'm automatically suspicious, especially if they come out and they've got big claims and no evidence. If they've got evidence, I'll look at the evidence, but everyone said, oh, well, you need to debunk Barber. And I said, there's really, I hate to say it, but how do you debunk an anecdotal story that's, in my opinion, pure fiction? What am I supposed to chase down and debunk a story if someone says that, that they went flying on a unicorn through the wardrobe, to the land of Narnia and became a prince and then
I'd pay to see that.
I would too. I'd love to see the evidence of it. But, if somebody claims that, I'm just going to go, woo, you're fucking crazy. Whatever. But for some reason, they say that they were a top tier operator and ran special forces and were helicopter pilots and recovered UFOs and psychically assaulted 9/11 prisoners in Guantanamo Bay with their minds and remote viewed and saved their village, their unit in Afghanistan from being attacked using their psychic powers. For some reason, we have to entertain that nonsense, But unicorns from Narnia, we get to dismiss, even though they're both just as fantastic and lack any sort of evidence, So
here's an analogy I use with Don, because we talk incessantly on the phone. I used Hoagland as my example. It doesn't matter to me whether you believe him partially, you think he's full of crap. But here's what Hoagland did that these guys won't do. Hoagland would appear on anybody's show. He would appear on Don's show multiple times, right? And that's my issue, is that he was making some crazy claims, in my opinion, but he wasn't hiding. He didn't have this group of people, a curtain around them to protect them, right? So he was going to, in essence, live or die by his claims and his own research and stuff. And that's a big problem I have with these guys, is that even Richard Hoagland, crazy stuff that he was saying, he wasn't hiding. So why are these guys hiding? Why do these guys look at the amount of people on a podcast, and if it's 25 people, they'll appear on that, and not with guys like Don? Well, we know why. We know why. Yeah. And yet the public doesn't seem to care. They want the story. Just give us a cool story. Come on.
Yeah, and
or
I think
a cool video.
Yeah, I think it's partially the need for entertainment, but it's also confirmation bias too. Plays a big role in it. There's a lot of people out there that are convinced that the world is a certain way, that this certain conspiracy theory is true, and as long as somebody's confirming that bias and telling them that you're right, you're totally right, they're going to accept that. Even if there's no evidence of it, and instead, I think that's when they should be more skeptical and more cautioned to be questioning of that, because that's somebody who's trying to manipulate them based upon their own bias. They're saying, look, I know if I tell you this, you're going to believe what I tell you, and then you're going to follow my charge or my leadership or whatever I tell you about it. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. We're seeing a counterintelligence guy like Luis Elizondo, who is manipulating public perception, who's manipulating small time people and using that to get to pretend like there's a voice that's bigger than it is to manipulate all the way up into Congress, and is trying to work his way into a White House appointed position as the UAPs are, and that's the scary part. I think if our foreign adversaries are watching this, their intelligence people have learned volumes about how easy it is to manipulate some of our congressional members and how dangerous information warfare can be. I mean, if all you have to do is convince 1,000 people on Twitter to rabble rouse, well, we already know that there's bot farms out there that can do that sort of thing, and
Right.
and stand behind something that's, no matter how ridiculous it is, And so if people are watching, they're learning how easy it is to get to some of our congressional leaders by confirming their bias, by playing into this love of conspiracy theory, which is a small segment of the people in our Congress who love a good conspiracy theory, whether it's on one side or the other. These extreme fringe people, there's been studies about this, just love a good conspiracy theory and will just swallow it hook, line, and sinker if it confirms their bias. So be careful of that.
Excuse me, I entered this field professionally in 1988. Okay, I had a long time interest in it, but professionally, 88. And when I did, all right, at UFO Magazine, my then publisher, who later became my wife, told me, she said, I don't know if you realize this or not, but the UFO field is the playground where intelligence community, people like the CIA, the NSA, the AFOSI, all those intelligence people, DIA, use this to see how their cables, their loudspeakers are working. In a perfect case in point, and this is a name that I'm dredging out of the past, a guy by the name of Richard Doty. Now, Doty, I'm sure you guys all know who that is, right? You all know who he is.
Yeah. I wish I didn't.
Okay. Yeah. Doty was an AFOSI guy who became involved in an operation directed against a civilian scientist by the name of Paul Benowitz, who stumbled into some top secret experimentation that was being conducted out at the Manzano weapons range. He actually lived just across the damn road from them. He had been, a contract employee of the Air Force, did work for them as a scientist, and he became convinced, and hey, in full disclosure, the guy had a huge interest in UFOs. He had a huge interest in, among other things, abductions. All right, this was all beforehand. But he became convinced the aliens were here and they were up to nefarious purposes. Well, the Air Force tried to warn him off. Now, I know this from two places, two sources, from Benowitz himself before he died. I talked to him a number of times on the phone, and the guy that basically stabbed him in the back, Benowitz, that is, stabbed Benowitz in the back, Bill Moore. Bill Moore, along with another co-author, wrote the first book on Roswell.
That was Friedman, right? Stan Friedman?
No.
Oh.
No. Bill Moore became a UFO celebrity, one of the early ones in the recent generation of UFOdom, okay? And as a result, the government sat up and took notice of him, all right? Then they contacted him. Now, Moore was working for APRO, at the time, one of their field investigators, the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization. And undoubtedly, he was reporting back to his government handlers everything he was involved in. But when Benowitz started kicking up a huge ruckus and would not back off, that's when the government got busy. And they mounted a campaign against him. Okay, to this day, I can't understand why this never saw the inside of a courtroom. But they literally drove that poor SOB into an insane asylum, a mental hospital. Now, Doty was the first, the one name that became very well known back in those days, but there were many others. And I watched a lot of this from my standpoint as a director of research at UFO Magazine. Now, I would go balls to the wall on a lot of this stuff, but ultimately it meant nothing because, hey, people individually can be extremely intelligent, but in a group, they're a dumb herd, okay? And I saw that, especially in 1989 at the MUFON Symposium, all right, that was held in Las Vegas, all right? It was astounding. And I kind of knew then that this thing would never be solved. And here we are, how many years later? Closing in on 40 years later from that point. And what the hell has come to the forefront? What do we know now that we didn't know in 1984? Other than names, all right? Do we know anything?
So, Don, because you knew him and you were more deeply involved in this, why didn't it break bigger? And as an analogy to what's going on now with the whistleblowers, because he was a form of a whistleblower, why didn't the Corso thing blow up bigger? Because his bona fides were real. We just talked about this, and the nukes that he had control of and all that, where we have these guys who are unknowns basically, who are getting all this press and all the rigmarole around them, and yet you have Corso who had the bona fides and all that, and yet it really didn't go anywhere. Not really in respect to what's going on now, right? It really did. He was never called in to talk.
Well, it did initially have a big splash.
Well, right, but it's a different splash.
But, okay, now Phil Corso told me this personally after the fact, all right? Bill Burns, the people that ended up getting UFO Magazine,
right,
and that ran it into the ground,
right,
okay, a year or so after they had possession of it, the thing folded up tent. Vicki and I had run it for over 20 years. And then suddenly it was gone. But Burns co-wrote the book with Phil Corso. And Corso told me that guy put stuff in there that he never said.
Right.
Stuff that he never did to make the book more sellable. Now, on another adjacent lane to what I just said about Corso in the book, UFO Magazine, when Burns took it over, and his wife, they started doing things that Vicki and I would have never, ever tolerated. We had done things like investigative pieces. We had done things like book reviews on all the new UFO books coming out. We had dove deep into cases. An example, Gulf Breeze. Gulf Breeze was a huge case.
Yeah, and you called a spade a spade. Yeah.
The Bentwaters thing, okay? UFO Cover-Up Live that ran in 88.
Yeah.
All right? we got in touch with the people that was intimately involved in that and got the inside story on a lot of this stuff, why it was such a fiasco. All right. Now, Burns started running nothing but practically opinion pieces. Every moron, okay, that had a story to tell, they would allow in the magazine. We would have never done that. Never. Because most of those people that they allowed in the magazine, I happen to know who they were, and I would have crossed the street to get the hell away from them. But not anymore. Now, Burns, his idea was everybody has a story. Let that story be told, and then the reading audience can make up their mind.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's not what the hell an investigative magazine that we had did. All right. I was a criminal investigator. I know how to do I know how to do an investigation. My wife was a journalism graduate, had worked as a reporter before the magazine. She knew how to go out and dig up a story. Now, suddenly, we had well, no, I'm going to stop there because I don't want to get sued. But, okay, it was a crock. It was a crock.
Don,
a bovine excrement.
Here's something to throw out, and maybe after the break we can talk about it. What has Congress seen as an opportunity now to have the meetings, to go down all this? And I don't mean just the videos that were released, but there's got to be a bigger opportunity there for them to do what they're doing now that they didn't do with somebody like Corso, who was vetted. Why didn't they call him in back then? What's different now that they say, let's grab a hold of this and use this to our benefit now to manipulate the public or make more money or make some more committees or whatever? There's something majorly different between the government now dealing with it and the government then dealing with it.
Well, Corso, for one thing, died in the late 90s. All right. He's gone.
Right.
Let's not forget people like Ben Rich, who headed up the Skunk Works at Lockheed. And if you don't know what the Skunk Works are, that was their super secret R&D research development of super advanced avionics. Okay, things like the U-2 spy plane, the SR-71 supersonic spy plane, the thing that could actually go up far enough to skip along the edges of outer space. All right. The thing that could fly in excess of 3,000 miles an hour. He said in a press conference, he told the audience then, 90s, that we have the technology to take E.T. home. He wouldn't elaborate on that, but that's what he said. Now, you guys are all intelligent, sharp people. What the hell does that mean to you? If I say to you, Manny, Ben Rich says we have the technology to take E.T. back home to his place of origin. What's that mean to you?
It means STL.
Yeah, it's got to mean space-time folding or something like that. That's faster than light, as Gerry just said, because conventional rockets take, I think, 40,000 years to hit Andromeda, our closest star. Like it's the length of the distance that you're traveling the stars and the time involved is so massive that you have to talk about something that's faster than light, whether it's
we have that
warp drive or
where the hell is it?
I don't know.
Where the hell is it if we have it? Now, I had a friend of mine.
And how do you monetize something like that, though? And what benefit does that serve the Earth? Like traveling amongst the stars is great, but what does that
serve? That drive system right next to the Ark of the Covenant?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think if we have that, it should be out there. That's one surefire way to save humanity is to travel to the stars, to make sure that if something happens to Earth, we're on another planet. To hell with Mars, let's go to another star. You know, like let's do it. But again, how do you monetize something like that? And what does that mean? How do we jump from combustion motors to faster than light travel if you don't have an alien equation? How do we skip all the necessary technology to get from A to Z? You know?
Well, you know, I was very fond in a lot of my early talks, okay, back when people still invited me to address their audiences. And I said, you know, you got to look at things today the way they are and the way things were not too awfully long ago. My dad, in September of 1941, months before the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, came from a fairly large family. They were not well-to-do, needed money, so he lied about his age and enlisted in the Pennsylvania State Guard, what today is the National Guard. You know what his job was?
You got to go to break, Don.
Yep.
Save it for.
Wait a minute. I thought it was 56. Let me look
going
here.
by what the producer said.
Give us a minute, about 30 seconds.
I'll finish this story when we come back. Stick around, ladies and gentlemen. We got another hour coming. See you on the flip. Okay, we are back, and let's see, everybody here? It looks like everybody's here. Yeah, real quick about my old man. So September of 41, he enlisted in the State Guard, all right? The second the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, all of those units were being activated, right, for the regular army. So Grandma went down and ratted him out. Okay, they threw him out of the Guard. He was too young. But my point was, do you know what his job was? He followed the cavalry around with a shovel, shoveling horse manure. In other words, at the beginning of World War II, the United States military still had boots and saddles. Hell, most of the German logistics were run by horses and wagons. When they invaded the Soviet Union, they had their Panzer tanks and all that kind of stuff. But how they got the supplies and stuff in there? Horse and wagons. Why? Because they didn't have the industrial capability to make tanks and trucks to haul them around. Now, yet, within 4 years, we went literally from horsepower to nuclear power. We dropped 2 atomic weapons on Japan. Now, Manny was saying, well, you know, how do you go from gasoline power to faster than light travel? Well, how did they go from horse shit to nuclear power in one fell swoop? Okay, they did it. We know that they did it. But how did they do it? Well, hey, never sell human beings short.
Well, it took 100 years for us to go from steam to, basically diesel and then gasoline. Because what people didn't know is that gasoline is a byproduct of making diesel. And they eventually figured out, we can turn this into a fuel.
And
but
we went from dots and dashes on the telegraph to cable TV. I mean, you know, and it hadn't been that long ago.
Nope.
Hell, my cell phone. All right, here is something that is absolutely miraculous. This thing is by magnitudes of order more computing power than they had on the Apollo 11 space shot.
Yep. So let's get back to Jake Barber and his basics, and then I know that I think we would be doing a service to everybody to play the video from MUFON. As much problems as I have with MUFON, this video does a huge service to try to shed some light on what what that egg thing is all about.
Well, and this guy knows what he's talking about.
Right.
When it comes to these, because I've been in military helicopters, and I'm going to tell you something. I don't hear the wash. All I hear is that the engine when I'm in those things.
Right. Yeah. So just to recap, this MUFON investigator is a former Air Force, I believe he's a helicopter pilot, and he's talking about some inconsistencies that he found in the green egg video that was aired in the News Nation piece with Jake Barber's story. And just to remind everyone, that's the video that we talked about at the beginning of the show that was aired with on News Nation, but is not directly related to Jake Barber. It was sent into News Nation from a third-party anonymous source. A lot of people suspect that may have been Dr. Greer or one of his whistleblowers, another one of his whistleblowers, but that this footage does resembles what Jake Barber was talking about. And News Nation played it, in my opinion, really confusing a lot of people because everyone thought that this was exactly what Jake Barber was seeing. But this guy does a really great job of breaking down some of the oddities in the video that some people like myself saw that thought that we thought that they were weird.
I think they intentionally conflated it. I think they wanted people to think that was the video. News Nation.
I agree with you, Gary. I think that if you look at the original edited interview and then look at the full interview and then take into context that this was a third-party video, there's no other assumption you can come to is that they did that on purpose to mislead people. But we'll go ahead and play this, and this guy just does a really good job of kind of tearing apart some of the inconsistencies in the video.
Intelligence and aviation background. I spent the last 17 years of my career flying AH-64 Apaches, OH-58 Kiowas, and UH-1 Huey helicopters. After reviewing the existential video from Jake Barber, I can say without a doubt the video did not involve a helicopter. I estimated the distance between the egg and the helicopter to be about 100 feet. That is if the egg is 20 feet long as purported. Yet the cable system seems calm and stable. Any cargo helicopter like a CH-47 or even utility helicopters like Blackhawks or Sea Stallions would have significant rotor wash to disrupt the cable with visible cable waves in rocking motion, especially when the egg is offloaded from the cable. At that point, the cable gains wave energy from the rotor turbulence and begins to move more violently. This did not happen in this video. The cable stayed stable and calm after offloading the egg-shaped craft. Also, if you hear sounds of helicopter blades working a cable system under the transmission and engines, the audio is fake. All you hear directly underneath helicopter transmission and engines is the high wind of the transmission and engines. Also, the rotor wash on the ground at the point of release of the cargo is so significant that it can actually brown out the load, or in this case, the objects being carried. Since the surface did not look like concrete but a field, there's no way that you would not be able to detect the rotor wash effect. Having direct experience moving large cargo under utility helicopters successfully, I also noticed the cable terminates well above the egg, and it looks like there's thread-like strings that are coming out from the bottom. I don't recall ever having a load that didn't have a pintle hook where you can hook the cables or straps in. This just seems to be terminating and there's just strings coming out the bottom. That is not what is normally used for sling load or recovery operations. The cargo release is not complete either when the video ends, so we don't get a chance to see how they detached the cable from the egg-shaped craft. And in fact, you see the cable moving off to the left and the egg starting to roll to the right. And that's not normally how you offload a object like this. Real world loads you would detach immediately once the cargo was safely on the ground to ensure the aircraft can depart without incident. In this video, no one's on the ground to ensure the load is detached or stabilized, and in fact the egg begins to roll to the opposite direction of the cable being moved. The video strikes me as one of an amateur attempt to simulate what was being claimed by Jake Barber. What I can say with high level of confidence is this video does not show a real helicopter recovery operation, and that's just my 2 cents worth.
There we go.
Wow.
So-
See, now that's what we need more of, like the Who's Lou and stuff like this.
Amen. As a person that was never a helicopter pilot, but I've been the recipient of many cargo drops by helicopters, and they'll only do those drops when the cargo they're bringing is too big to fit inside the helicopter, and where they can land it, then you off put the equipment. Sometimes they got to drop that shit to you, and the way they drop it, they bring it in, they bring it down, and there's a quick release that one of the guys on the ground is in charge of releasing that so the helicopter can move on. But you are down there. The minute it touches the ground, you are on that gear to make sure it doesn't get broken, because it's usually expensive gear.
Right. And you see, with the editing of what they did, again, they knew that by editing it in such a way and him saying that he felt love and all that, you would have people on their keyboard saying
feelings, yeah, right.
There's not people down there because they were afraid that they would try to hump the egg or whatever because of the feelings of love and all that stuff. It was all just manufactured for response, right? Not for research. It was manufactured for a public response to this thing.
Yeah, and like you said, it almost felt like a clumsy recreation. You know, like there's a few things that stood out to me. The rotor wash was the first thing. The unnatural stability of the cable holding the egg. I was like, God, that's just, there's no swaying, there's no rippling like you would see. Like the first thing I did was go and Google some other videos that show like a helicopter dropping a payload off on a cable, and it's always rocking back and forth and swaying, and there's sometimes rippling in the cable.
That close to the ground, you get the updraft from the helicopter wash, and it pushes, it starts whipping the cable around.
Right. Yeah, I've seen one where like an Osprey was taken off the deck of a aircraft carrier, and there was so much wash it picked up like an empty pallet full of like had a wooden box on it. Yeah, and it launches it like 100 feet in the air.
I've seen the video. I've seen
like there's a significant amount of wash, and you're not seeing anything here.
And if you take that cable and you were to drop it in a heap on the ground, it would be very weighty. But when you extend it in the air, it's no longer. It responds differently, right?
Sure. Yeah. And by the way, do you guys know what brownout means? I'm assuming Don knows what it is.
No,
when the wash hits the ground, there's so much debris and dirt.
Oh, the dust. Okay.
That it blocks the view. You wouldn't be able to see it anymore with that GoPro camera they were clearly using. And it just, there's no movement on the ground.
Yeah. Right.
There's no wash. And it's just really fucking bizarre looking.
No,
it is.
Yeah, go.
One other thing that I thought was weird about this video, which he didn't mention, was the light source. It appears to be on the ground level, and it looks like it's a very high
IR.
Right. Well, the camera is, but I mean the light source that's casting the shadow on the egg. If you look at it,
no, that's infrared. The reason you have such a sharp shadow, I was explaining this to Mark.
Yeah.
When you're working with IR equipment like nogs and such, once you go to the IR level, the infrared level, the shadows aren't, normal shadows are kind of diffuse unless the light's right up on it. But with IR, it's different. Right. IR casts a sharp shadow no matter the distance.
And he is correct. I did a deep dive on that, and I said, damn it, Gary's right.
Damn.
Right. I'm talking about the angle of the shadow, though. It's not coming from the helicopter. It's coming from the ground.
It's on the ground.
Right. So there's some sort of light source on the ground, but there's no ground personnel. Like, so who's shining the light from the ground if there's no ground personnel?
Well, that's the problem with IR is if that's an intense IR light, that thing could be 50 yards off and it'll still cast the same shadow.
Right. It could be a good clip away if it's 100,000 lumen or something.
Also, if you look at today's population, now who would mention noticing all these things? For the most part, former military personnel.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
We notice shit like that. Yeah.
They were depending upon the fact, I think, that most civilians are totally ignorant these days of military procedures.
Of course. And isn't it interesting? Everybody's screaming about, and I agree, where's the evidence? Where's more than tall stories, right? So they release this thing, and has this thing kept its sheen? No. They released it, people talked about it, and we've moved on. I mean, the general public, right? They've just moved on. No different than any other light in the sky from TikTok or anything else. And it's like, isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it's what I'm starting to call Chicken Little syndrome. You know, like they've promised us disclosure and irrefutable evidence so many times, and then we get green eggs and ham. You know, like it's so bad.
There has to be more of us cynical people out here that are getting sick of it.
It is, and honestly, and I follow this community, you know, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Reddit. I follow the UFO communities, and I can tell you that even amongst the so-called believer disclosure folks, they're getting sick and tired of it already too.
Right,
They're jumping ship real fast.
I compare these believers to the Swifties.
Yeah,
they're stupid.
Well, you know, I mean, never underestimate somebody's want to believe, coupled with good confirmation bias,
fanatical belief.
And then mainstream reinforcement, you know, like News Nation, you know, and I know we've discussed this, but if you go to the News Nation YouTube channel and look at what their most popular videos are, three of their top 5 most popular videos are these Coulthard pieces, you know, like it's this UFO crazy, you know, woo, 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 you know. So, I mean, as long as people keep clicking and watching it, they're going to keep promoting it. Same goes for Joe Rogan, his #1 video of all time, Bob Lazar and Jeremy Corbell. Unfortunately, you know, like that's sad that more people.
Well, it's the same thing with Sean Ryan too.
Yeah. And then, you know, like you were saying earlier, Mark, I think it was, now there's a ufology and disclosure, as they're calling it, has become flavor of the week. So there's 1,001 podcasts and armchair journalists, and everyone out there is trying to get a piece of the action now. And it's all for entertainment purposes at this point. There's no real disclosure to be had here. If there was, we'd have it already. I think, you know, the government's been given multiple times, even before all this started, to come clean if they wanted to, you know. So why would they do it now? You know, after
Chapman in the chat said what we've been talking about, which is that is the understanding, is that was not intended to be his video, Barber's video, that was something News Nation had put on there, hoping that everybody would conflate it with him. And it's clearly not a fucking military helicopter video.
100%. And that's part of the problem. And to further that, you had Ross Coulthard for a good week before this interview coming out. Everyone was saying, is there going to be evidence with this Barber thing? Because he was doing this thing like they always do, where they're like, something big's coming. And everyone was saying, is there going to be evidence this time? And he was promising there would be evidence. And this is the evidence that they showed us, was something that was not at all related to Jake Barber at all. So that's why, you know, I agree with what Gary said. I think that this was deliberately deceptive. I don't think it was an oversight. I don't think that they put it out there and were like, well, we just wanted to give you some B-roll to look at. No, I think they did this on purpose. And I think
now there's something else, Manny. There's something else that you mentioned earlier. Okay. This documentary coming out. I forget the guy's name you mentioned.
Dan Farah. He's a producer. He's actually Lou Elizondo's agent.
He's also, well, that tells me a lot right there.
Yeah.
But anyway, you mentioned a number of names, and one of the names you mentioned was Gary Nolan. Now, I find this guy particularly interesting. He allegedly, now I don't know Nolan, I've never talked to him, but he allegedly has examined a lot of military personnel that had allegedly very close encounters with unidentified objects that in some way, manner, basically damaged them. Okay, suffering some type of disorder with their physical brains. Now, he supposedly also had contact with Barber. I would be interested in that connection there to see whether he picked up the same type. I mean, this would be a way of confirming, at least in part, some of Barber's story. You see what I'm saying?
I do, and I can fill in a couple of blanks on that actually too.
Excellent.
So one of the presentations that Gary Nolan gave, he showed an MRI that was from a former military member who had a close encounter with a UAP, who had suffered physical damage from the UAP. The guy whose MRI that was saw his MRI up on stage and was shocked because that's not what happened. The guy whose MRI was being represented up on stage was a security guard at Skinwalker Ranch. He was also a part-time ex-military contractor.
Is that the guy that
security.
had the lump on his skull?
That was from the lump was, I believe, one of the show members, a cast member on the show.
Oh, I thought he was one of the security guys.
Right, he might have been, but it's this is a different person. This guy who worked on Skinwalker Ranch.
I know who you're talking about.
This is not Dragon. This is well before the show was being shot. This was during the Bigelow OSAP days. So the guy works as a security guard at Skinwalker Ranch.
Former military guy?
Former military.
Okay, I know who you're talking about.
Was his name Skinner?
No. I'm not going to say his name because even though he's come out and talked about it and he's active in the society or in our community, I'm still not going to say his name unless he wants it to be said publicly. But he is out there and he's active and he is sharing his story. So he was injured while working at Skinwalker Ranch. He doesn't know what injured him, but it wasn't a UAP. There was no event or anomalous behavior. So what happens is he gets injured at the site and he's flown to a hospital, I believe in Las Vegas, Nevada, where they do this MRI. And a guy by the name of Dr. Christopher Kit Green picks him up at the hospital in his Porsche and takes his MRI records and they disappear. He's like, I'm going to go review these, and this person who was injured believed that they were going to tell him, they were going to work on it and say, look, we think you were injured. This is what happened so he could get treatment. He never hears from him again. Fast forward a few years, several years, 10, 12 years. And his MRI shows up somehow got from the hands of Kit Green into the hands of Gary Nolan and is being presented as a UAP damaged military member. It's not true. It was a misrepresentation. He was a former military member. He was a former contractor, but he was damaged at Skinwalker Ranch by he doesn't know what. He believes there was some sort of maybe underground high, whatever you call it, high frequency radar array or something like that damaged him that he got in the way of, which could happen. Severe acute microwave radiation damage is what he was thinking, but it was not UAP related. And so that's part of the problem that I have is how did his MRI get from Kit Green to Gary Nolan?
Manny, excellent.
Yeah, and he'll talk to you about that.
Of any of that.
Well, he's not real vocal. You'll hear him on Twitter and or on Facebook every now and then. You'll see a post, but he's not real vocal. But I've talked to him at length.
Would he be willing to come on this show? You think?
I can ask. He might.
Would you do that?
He has talked about his story
with him, so to make him feel more comfortable.
Yeah, we'll talk about that after the show, after the fact. But that is what he shared was, and the part that really resonated with me was Kit Green picking him up from the hospital in a Porsche, and then taking it, and somehow it gets into Gary Nolan's hands. And here again, like I said earlier, you can't go too far in these things until you get the same names of the same people keep popping up over and over and over and over and over and over again. And not just recently. I mean, we're talking like, late, 2007 to 2012, maybe like that time frame. And these people were doing all this back then. And now we're finding out behind the scenes that they were also trying to set up Bigelow with the Kona Blue program, which was supposed to be the UFO that was supposed to be released from Lockheed Martin and given to Bob Bigelow to reverse engineer, because supposedly Lockheed Martin, with their endless budget and countless thousands of engineers, could reverse engineer this thing. But Bob Bigelow was going to do it with the help of Hal Puthoff and Tom DeLonge or something. I'm a little shocked by that, but that's what they were doing at the same time. It was all going on.
I definitely want to ride in a UFO that was done by Tom DeLonge.
It better just have a kicking Bose sound system in it, so I can play those awesome Blink 182 songs from back in the day. About
182. Yeah.
I like his music. I don't, and honestly, I think if Tom DeLonge and I were to have a beer, I'd probably get along with him just fine. Talk ufology, but I would just walk away from it understanding that 99% of what he's saying is probably bullshit. But he's well learned on the subject. It's clear he's read every book that's ever been written on the subject. It's just where I tend to be skeptical and want evidence. He just believes everything that's handed to him, and that's fine, not a big deal. But I don't see, he probably doesn't like me very much. I've done a documentary about him too, a little short Who's TTSA documentary I did, where I dug into the corporate records of TTSA and found that it wasn't very it wasn't very friendly to the stock investors who
Were you
put their money
mean
in
to him,
that
Manny?
company.
Were you mean to him?
No, I was just brutally honest. Brutally honest. You know.
So with the peripheralation, and I sent a bunch of these out to Gerry and Don, with the Facebook Shorts and the Instagram Shorts and the Reels and all that of the the fake stuff, right? It's getting better and better and better. And I flash back to sightings, and when the actor sees the ET walk in front of the camera and he gets freaked out, right? And I'm just wondering how long it's going to be until something is released, like the Will Smith thing, when he picks up the paper. How long is it going to be until it's so good that congressman, the president, or whatever just is completely convinced and it's fake? I mean, I don't think that's too far off, dude. I'm thinking that they're going to be able to use AI and all these tools to make something that's going to be inexplicable, and we're all going to look at it and go, "Oh my God, look, it's real, it's real."
Yeah, I think the tools were already there before AI. You know, like, I mean, I'm an After Effects guy, so I know how to use the program. I use it routinely. In fact, I was just working on a fake UFO video for a project that I'm working on, you know, and I was able to crank out something in a couple of hours that looked very realistic. And it was kind of in that style of Jordan Peele's Nope, you know, like a dark blue and, you know, like real dusky kind of thing. And it was really simple. Now, when you start adding AI to it, it's just going to get ridiculous real quick, you know, and so you're going to have to get into something where I think for anyone to believe that something's real, it's not just going to be a one-off. You're going to need a massive sighting. And I don't mean 3 to 5 people. I mean hundreds of people.
Right.
Hundreds of people. And it's going to have to be verified on traffic cameras, on Ring doorbell cameras. It's going to have to be verified on security cameras, which are everywhere nowadays, you know, in any urban setting, unless it happens out in the middle of BFE. If anywhere, even in the suburbs, there's probably, you know, 5 or 6 cameras looking at any patch of sky. So you're going to need to have some mass cooperation from unrelated sources. And then that's what it's going to take to be real. It's not going to be that something looks so good, because they've got stuff nowadays that looks, you know, is indistinguishable from reality. It looks way better than Jake Barber's green egg UFO on the end of a rope.
Right.
You know,
right.
like that to me was just so silly. I looked at this, like, I just started laughing when this posted. Like, when they played this in the interview, I had to stop it, and I stared at it, and I felt like I had the thought, I was like, are they fucking trolling us? Is that what they're doing? Are they really trolling us with this? Like, is this really what they're saying is going to change everything? Like, this is going to be a joke, right? And I was like, no, they're being serious. They're being serious. Like, Coulthard pitched this as changing reality. And like Mark, you said, nobody gave a crap. We're already on past it.
Right.
You know, like,
and a good example of the Ring cameras and stuff is when the plane hit the helicopter, and slowly but surely more of them started coming out until we had almost a crystal clear copy that it was nighttime, so they lightened it up. And when I saw that, and it showed like it's spinning down and this one's spinning down, and I was like, oh, here's the perfect example of, not saying cryptids don't exist, but here's the perfect example of we should have better footage. Come on.
Right. And not from a single source. Like you saw, like you said there, Mark, there was dozens of cameras that caught that.
And then
the Philadelphia crash.
The clearest stuff that was that these 2 people were on like the roof or something, and it's the best footage. They arrested those people for releasing that. You shouldn't have released this. What the hell are you talking about?
I'm going to bet you money they're going to get released here soon too.
Yeah, they'll probably have a lawsuit on their hands too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, this is America. If you're standing out in a public place recording something, you should have a full right to that. Unfortunately, you know, like,
well, you know, the media was playing with that and saying that they were employees of the airport and obtained some of the footage illegally.
Oh, they maybe took it from airport systems or something.
Yeah,
that's kind of a sketchy area, especially if it was like if it was airport CCTV or something. You know, that's a little sketchy. Yeah, I mean, like, that's work related, so maybe not. You know, but if they're standing out on a smoke break and they got their phone in their hand and they record it, you know,
one's one thing, but I think what they're saying, these guys. But I'm going to bet you money that they will be released soon.
I think in the public interest, they should have been able to release.
So the documentary by that guy, regardless if he's,
Mhm.
what you may think of him, you think there's going to be anything in there of worth?
No, I think because of who he is. So Dan Farah is a guy. He's a
Are you talking
Hollywood
about
producer.
Barber?
No,
No.
this is the Age of Disclosure by Dan Farah.
Oh,
Dan Farah is a Hollywood producer. He did work with Steven Spielberg on Ready Player One. He was, I think, the financial producer for that film that handled like $600 million worth of in and outs for that movie.
Right.
And then he was also the producer for the Unidentified television show that Lou Elizondo was on for 2 years. And that's where they met, I believe. And then he became Elizondo's agent after that. He's the one who brokered Elizondo's book deal, if you Google that. And he's also got Jay Stratton's book deal that he's brokered.
When he was doing that show, I fell for his bullshit hook, line, and sinker up front.
Yeah, I still watch that show, and I'm like, it's good production quality, but I can't. Knowing that Elizondo is full of crap, I have a hard time watching anything he's in for more than like 5 minutes before I start yelling at the TV, and like my girlfriend and my cat are looking at me
like an old man.
Hey, shut up,
you.
dude. Yeah. But anyways, Dan Farah's done this movie. I don't think there's going to be anything new in it, Mark. I think it's going to be the same old drivel that we've heard. It'll probably be along the lines of Jim Fox's disclosure programs that he's done, the program, and then the other one, the Phenomenon. The only difference is it's going to have everyone all in one place. It's got Marco Rubio in there. It's got it'll probably have Tim Burchett. It'll probably have Congresswoman Luna. It'll have all of the Disclosure Caucus folks in there. But what it won't have is any new evidence. It's premiering at South by Southwest this year. Should be a good watch. I'll probably watch it because I like a good UFO documentary. It's well produced. At least it's not low budget schlock. It's going to be good. And that being said,
you just have to start questioning reality when you see a shitload of Democrats appearing in those videos, and it's just immediately going, okay, what's going on here?
Well, this is bipartisan, though. This isn't a party thing.
I like it when you see more bipartisanship, but when you see like a shitload of
anything that's military industrial complex related, or which in this case includes UAP, is going to be bipartisan. Right. Because those big, if you're drawing your paycheck from the government, you don't pick sides because you never know who's going to be in power next term that can screw you because you didn't vote for them. You know what I mean? So you got to keep it neutral. But following up, Steven Spielberg's also working on his next piece that was just recently reported. He's filming it in New Jersey, and Lou Elizondo's been taking trips to New Jersey.
Greer before Stephen Greer, though, because he said he would never make an alien film with bad aliens, ever.
Well, how do you know what good aliens are? In my opinion, his film has really kind of dictated what aliens look like, the classic gray. How would we know if he hadn't made the movie that he did? Where did he get that from? Jacques Vallée, right? So it is this the cards, which came first, the chicken or the egg? And he's always been kind of aliens. The Crystal Skull, Indiana Jones had the interdimensional aliens in it. That came from another dimension.
Right.
It wasn't like, oh, we're from another world. No, we're from another reality.
Well, I've seen recently a hell of a lot of reels, like up on Facebook. You're familiar with the reels.
Yes.
Of alleged whites talking, ETs, okay? Usually a female. Now, I know they're not real, but I got to say, they're fairly convincing for something, Have you guys noticed that?
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of those that are done in what's called Unreal Engine 5, which is an animation and game engine, movie engine. It's what they're using for virtual production in Hollywood.
And they're really
nowadays.
nice.
They're amazing. They look great. And if they're treated right, almost it's indistinguishable from the real world. I've seen some really good UFOs done in that where it was hard to tell that they were 100% CGI.
Right.
I
can't do pronunciations real well. So Manny, I put the cast list up there for the Age of Disclosure. If you want to read off those names, it's clear what's going on.
Luis Elizondo, Jay Stratton, Marco Rubio, Kristen Gillibrand, Christopher Mellon, James Clapper, Tim Burchett, and Dr.
James Clapper.
Rudolph.
What the hell does James Clapper have to do with this? Come on.
I don't know, man. I mean, that's like a trifecta of like who's who in this group, and that's
El Presidente removed his security clearance.
Yeah. Right. But don't say that too loudly on Twitter, or Lou Elizondo will threaten to sue you. Because he doesn't want to be associated with these people.
It kind of smacks to me like 51 intelligent experts say that the laptop is Russian disinformation. This smacks of that.
Right. And if you had one piece of solid evidence, it wouldn't matter if you had 51 or no people standing behind it.
Right.
And 51 anecdotal stories are not going to outweigh the one piece of evidence, in my opinion.
Don, how many times do we have to hear from the same people? Haven't we been hearing from the same people for 50 years?
Seven times.
Okay.
It's the usual suspects. It's like, and that's what I keep saying. If anyone's tied to this group, I just don't. You got to look at them sideways. And if they don't have conclusive evidence behind them, I have to reject what they say. Is it entertaining? Yeah, sure. Is what Jake Barber said entertaining? Absolutely. Is it any more? Does it move any needles? Did it change anything? Not in my book, because it's the same old crap that Michael Herrera said, or that Dave Grush said, or that, endless other people have said, even going on back to Colonel Corso. People have been saying this stuff.
MUFON doesn't invite me to anything because I'm not entertaining.
Yeah.
I just hit them with data, and they don't like that.
And that's what the field needs. I mean, this is supposed to be scientific inquiry, not what do you believe in entertainment, and it's shifted to where specifically since 2017, in the last 8 years, they've really shifted it into an entertainment, a cottage industry of entertainment, and that, I guess that's okay. It's fine. I like a good UFO movie. I like a good alien movie, but I also like the nuts and bolts science, looking into documents, looking into doing research, what really happened, getting to the bottom of these stories, are they true? Are they not? And I want the reality. I don't want a story that's force-fed or tailored for my I'm not trying to confirm a bias that I've made up. I'm trying to get to the truth. Like, what did the government know and when did they know it? Have they hidden it from us? Should they have told us? And if so, let's rip the Band-Aid off. If there's some kind of real top secret alien tech out there that can benefit humanity, rip the fucking Band-Aid off and let's go, for the sake of the next generation and the ones that are following that. Like, if there's some kind of magical cure for ailments that can give humanity a better way of life, then let's do it. What's the point? Like, we don't have to monetize everything. We don't have to make a dollar
putting everything
off
to in weeks. It's always this way with these snake oil salesmen. It's 8 to 9 years off. We're going to have this.
And in 8 years, it's another 8 years. And in 8 years, it's another 8 years. It's always free beer tomorrow. Never today. Always free beer tomorrow.
That's a Greer. 1993 is basically when he made a name for himself, and there's nothing new, and it's all the same old horse shit. Yeah. He's, I've got this database full of evidence. Oh, do you?
Well, let's see it. Let's see the evidence. We're past the point of needing anecdotes and stories and allegations and claims. We need some ironclad evidence, and I've said this before, let's stop calling these people whistleblowers that are coming out making claims. They're storytellers. Okay. If you don't have any evidence to back up your claim, you're not a whistleblower, you're a storyteller. Okay. Snowden, he had evidence. He's a whistleblower. Look at what it cost him, to blow the whistle, whether you like what he did or don't, he still was able to prove without a shadow of a doubt that his story was accurate. Reality Winner, same thing. Whether you like what she did or not, she had some evidence to support her claims. That's why she went to jail.
Right.
These are whistleblowers. And they've paid the price for it. They weren't given book deals. They weren't doing tours. They weren't going to, Europe and being in GQ magazine like Elizondo. They're not running for their life and afraid that they're going to be killed and then doing a News Nation interview with Ross Coulthard in the next breath and putting their face on TV.
And they don't have a dead man switch. Hello.
Yeah.
Right.
Wait a minute. So you have information that you could release right now, but you'll only release it if you get killed.
Right. To me, if that were true, the last thing these people should be doing is announcing that to the world. Exactly. Because some of these disclosure folks they're kind of what I would call a zealot, and one of them might go after him to force that trigger, to trigger a dead man switch. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah.
Especially, here's somebody like Ross Coulthard who claims that he knows where there's a massive UFO buried that was so big that the U.S. government couldn't move it and they had to build a building on top of it, and it's a secret facility and blah, 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 blah. Bring that out. He's not under any obligation to keep that secret. He doesn't have a top secret security clearance. He wasn't read into a program. He has all the journalistic protections in the world, and he could bring that out legally. But he claims to know that, and he's going to keep that for his dead man switch. I'm just like, I don't buy it. Don't buy it. Don't buy it for a second. Yeah. So where are we at? We've got, Jeremy Corbell is turning on him now. I don't know if you guys saw what happened in the last congressional hearings with him and the Immaculate Constellation document. He was all upset that I think it was Luna took the front page off it that had his name on it and claimed that Michael Schellenberger had turned that document into her. So he was all over Tubi claiming that she's lying part of the cover up, and they're starting to turn on each other. And it's just like, grab your buckets of popcorn. It's going to be entertaining. It's going to be entertaining, and it's not skeptics that are doing it.
Well, she's a lot better looking than he is anyway. So
no argument there. Corbell is not too soft on the eyes, and he's just so, I don't know, man. Something about him just, I can't watch him for more than a few minutes because he takes himself so seriously.
Go back to his documentary about Lazar, and it's the most bizarre fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. It's about him.
Yeah, I was going to say about 40%, 50% of it's about him, like him hiding in the bathtub, like, oh, the FBI is raiding Lazar's office right now. And he's implying that it's all about his documentary. And then we find out after the show came out, it had nothing to do with the documentary, but about some weird fucking thing that Lazar had sold someone and who, like, I guess she used it to murder her husband or something like that. It was really weird. Right. Yeah, like it had nothing to do with the UFOs or anything. But boy, you couldn't tell that by watching his documentary, could you? Like he was
had known that. When he put that in the documentary.
Well, I think he believes his own BS. I think Corbell is one of those, like, I think he buys all that. Like in the Tubi documentary, like his hands are shaking and he's like, I can tell you what the lie is going to be, the conspiracy, but you're going to think twice you should really think twice about putting this in your documentary. And then he's like, he's like talking to the producer and I get the feeling that he sincerely believes his own crap. And I think, like maybe he needs to step off of the weed or whatever the mushrooms, whatever he's on, like get off it and clean up for a month and get a clear head. Like he believes his own BS, man. And it's crazy.
I put this right up there with the phony Navy SEALs.
Yeah.
Some of them I think are doing it for glamour. And I think some of these people are mental enough to believe it.
Well, yeah, and then they get so wrapped up in it. You see it a lot of times. I've seen it here in this community more than once. There was another guy named Ashton Forbes who got just his identity is wrapped up in this MH370 fake videos that are out there, those computer generated ones that he just has to swear that they're real, and the same thing here with Jeremy Corbell. His identity is now that he's the UFO whistleblower. And if that ever comes out that he was full of crap or that he was being misled or used, which he may have been, his reality is going to shatter. So there's some cognitive dissonance there where he just has to either commit to it 100% or realize that he's been wrong all along and been played and then go away and be nothing. He has to be Sensei Corbell again doing, yoga Tai Chi videos for $1 on the internet, that's what he was doing beforehand. Like nobody cared about Corbell until he met
with 80s
George Knapp. Yeah. I mean, and there's, I think he's just found his thing. He finally had a little bit of success and got some celebrity status, like for a while there, he was looking like he was going to be the it guy. And now they're like rushing him off and pushing him off and it's everybody else. So he's a little upset. Feels like it's going away.
Interesting about George Knapp. He is a journalist, right? He's done like non-UFO work and done some good stuff, right? And yet as a journalist, George Knapp doesn't seem interested in going after these folks. He's just going to go along for the ride, it looks like. And it's like, well,
it is. It's what's heartbreaking.
Then you're not a journalist.
Well, yeah, you see what happens if you go along. You get paid. You make a lot of money. You get invited to UFO conventions, just like Jeremy Corbell, George Knapp, and Lou Elizondo will be here in Oregon at the McMinnville UFO convention here in a month or two.
Well, you better go. And,
you bet your ass I'm going.
There you go.
You bet your ass, man. I will definitely be going down for this one.
Excellent.
But that's what happens if you play along. If you question the narrative, if you call out people like this, then what do? You get doxxed. You get defamed. You get blacklisted. They don't watch your movies. They don't watch your shows. You don't get invited into UFO conventions.
Don Ecker. You get Ecker.
Yeah, I know. I was about to warn you, Don. You better watch out, man. They might dox you.
Get in line, sweetheart.
Right.
Get in line.
So there's definitely a financial and a professional interest into going along, like I've seen podcasts that came out of nowhere, shoot up to 100,000 viewers and make thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, and it's all because they play the party line, they'll repeat the rhetoric, and I think a lot of people don't understand how they're being used to perpetuate this stuff, but it really is just a misinformation campaign. And it's being run like an op, but it's not really, I don't think it's a legitimate op. Like, I don't think that, people have said, oh, Lou Elizondo is CIA. I don't think he is. I think it would be a lot more professional. I don't think he would be slapstick. It's like the Keystone Cops, if it is. And I think our CIA is a little bit better than that. You know, at one point I was talking with somebody who was on the inside with this group, and they had realized that Elizondo was full of crap. You know, like he was trying to get this person to misrepresent some documents that they had found, to put on their military fatigue or their dress uniform and go in front of a camera and misrepresent things. And they didn't want to do that. They were just like, no, I'm not doing this. And they were worried that they would come after them and retaliate if they were to blow the whistle on them. And I said, you don't have to worry about it. Like, these guys like to pretend like there's some big organized conspiracy, but really it's the Scooby-Doo villain gang. You know, that's really what they are. They're that laughable, you know, like, and, you know, like you see it, you know, it is. It's like you rip off the mask and you're like, oh, it's old man Elizondo. I knew it all along, you know, like, right. You can't, they take themselves too seriously, and we need to just take a step back. And
well, I'll
like,
tell you,
no,
the first thing I noticed about Lou, and this was before I ever even spoke to him.
Who's Lou?
Yeah,
who is that
who's
guy?
Lou? I worked off and on for 2 years undercover back in the very early 80s, okay, on narcotics. Obviously, back when I was a cop then. And
No, it was just a hobby.
Yeah.
there were certain things you did. There were certain things you didn't do. And one thing, and I never did it, never got a tattoo. Never got a tattoo. Okay. I was tempted once in the Army. And then I figured when I got home, my mother would beat the shit out of me. So I didn't do it. But anyway, the guy is covered top to bottom in tattoos. Now, how the hell can you work covertly or undercover with all of that telltale ink on you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
That's first thing that caught my eye. And today I'll see a pretty girl. Okay. And hey, I love to look at pretty girls. I'll be the first to admit it. But then a lot of these chicks are inked from top to bottom. Why?
And they got the
Okay.
nose ring.
I don't get it. I don't get it. Maybe I never will. At my age, who gives a shit? But
Manny, it's the rinse and repeat. So the age of disclosure, 2025, we have all these talking heads going to come out and say the same horseshit as they did before. And then we have the podcast and all that stuff. It just seems like they're in the rinse and repeat sort of cycle by coming up to Oregon to tell the same stories, maybe show some new videos of some sort.
Right.
But
you like that, don't you, Mark? Rinse and repeat.
Well,
Rinse and repeat.
Well, the wife does say I smell a little. I smell like a white man, she said. So, but it just seems as though their initial disclosure has been done, and now they're just going to ride this as long as they can until the wheels come off for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's where it's going. There's there's not going to be any big disclosure in the government. It's not going to come from this disclosure caucus. And like, why are they getting involved in it now? It's real simple. You go look at Tim Burchett's Twitter feed and go look at his posts that he make that are UFO related and see how they get 30, 40,000 likes on them. And then go look at the ones that are not and see how they get like a couple hundred.
Right.
Like nobody cares what that guy says if it's not UFO related. So so you've got politicians who are in it for the reach because they're getting exposure. You've got celebrity types like Elizondo, because he's not a whistleblower and he's not a military guy. He's a celebrity now. He's a social media celebrity. Like that's what he is. He's just a mouthpiece. Then and it all pushes towards books, films, and TV. It's all entertainment. It's all money and entertainment. There's no, there's not. Oh shit! Sorry, I just saw that, Gary. That's too bad.
Yeah, just popped up in my newsfeed.
Yeah, that was this morning when that happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
See, I'm just getting my newsfeed now, and it's like that was the first thing in there.
Any deaths?
I don't know. It just popped up in my feed. Do you know,
Yeah,
Mark?
No, I don't know.
A lot of airline problems.
Does seem like the last couple of months there's been a lot of issues. Like on the ground and in the air. Like what's going on here? It's shocking, especially when you consider that most of those systems, 90% of them are automated, like other than takeoff and landing, like
Right.
a lot of that stuff's all automatic. So there shouldn't be a lot of issues, but yeah, Mark, going back, I think we are in rinse and repeat. I think, like you said, ride it till the wheels came off is what their game plan is now. Milk it till you can't, till you get every dollar out of it.
Has there been any new people reaching out to you, or any of the haters, the new haters and stuff, about the Who's Lou thing that you put out, or is that just kind of out there now and you're not getting a bunch of response?
It's out there and it's referenced, especially from people who've been around for a while. They kind of know what it was, and when it came out, the effect that it had on the community, how it kind of changed the landscape a little bit and allowed people to be more open about questioning.
Right.
Because before that, you really couldn't. You got bullied out of the way if you questioned Elizondo, but I think I was probably one of the first people to really stand up to him and be like, no, I'm not going anywhere. And neither of these questions,
Right.
So that's the impact that it had. And we just had 2 weeks ago, had the 3-year anniversary of it. So I did a watch party on my YouTube, and a lot of people came by that were, just to watch it and talk about it, have fun. Not a big thing. Right. I don't think it'll ever get it will never be like mainstream. Like nobody's ever going to call me up from News Nation and be like, oh, you did this thing on Elizondo. Why are you so critical of him? What are your questions? We're going to ask them,
Right.
But I have seen people who have taken questions out of there and kind of adopted them into their questioning and their narrative.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I know it's had an effect on people.
Yeah, I know that I did when I talked to Don, because he hadn't seen it, and I started to give him a little response on what was in it. He was really, and that's why we wanted to have you on. Can you share anything that you're working on now to any extent?
We talked about this last time. I've been working with Bob Kivia, on
Right.
stuff. The one that we're working on right now is non-UFO related.
Did you mention my name to Kvyat?
Yeah, I did.
Would I have loved to have heard what he said?
Yeah, did he
I'll
say
tell him to call you?
That son of a bitch?
No. As Bob doesn't talk trash about people.
No.
That's not his way. No, normally when we talk, it's just business related. We talk about work, he is wanting to get into something more UFO related after this project's done. So hopefully we get the chance to do that. And we should have access to somebody who I think the community has been waiting to hear from for a long time. A former CIA guy who a lot of people might know, but hasn't gone on the record. So hopefully we can get that guy put in there. We'll see, but hopefully that's coming soon. But yeah, nothing UFO related. This is music industry related, and it's something to do, which honestly I needed a little bit of a break. The UFO stuff gets a little, you get caught up in it, and sometimes it just doesn't go anywhere. Like you said,
does it make you emotional, Manny?
Sometimes I cry into my pillow,
That's right. Those poor ETs, like Odin, when Odin said to the interview with the alien, and he's crying on camera. The guy with the ponytail, he's dead now. But he said, that poor ET, look what they're doing to that poor ET. And it's you mean the puppet?
Right.
I've wanted to do a cartoon for a while now that has Lou Elizondo on the defense in the courtroom and an alien in the witness box yelling, "You know nothing of our work."
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, they got him in front of Congress, to swear he was telling the truth. I didn't see that coming. I really thought never in a million years would this guy ever try to testify under oath. But, he saw the path was paved, and you see the types of questions they asked him were pretty easy. And they had obviously rehearsed all that beforehand. So it wasn't really anything new. They didn't ask him about, like any of the good stuff, in my opinion, like why his program was a volunteer activity and why he misrepresented it, why he lied and said he was running this thing for 10 years when he wasn't, like whatever happened with the flying cart to the Stars Academy. Like there's all kinds of good questions they could have asked him, and they just didn't. It was all softball, underhanded softball. So, maybe next time.
Well, and just because you're under oath, and we won't get political here, but there's been a lot of stuff said in Congress under oath and things, and it just goes away, right?
Yeah,
for the most part, it just goes away.
Well, and here's the thing: if you're not committing perjury unless you're knowingly lying. So if somebody tells you a story and you're repeating hearsay evidence an anecdotal story somebody repeated to you as truth, you're not lying. It's not perjury because you're just repeating a story you heard. But if somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, I worked in the government and we have a UFO and alien, and we're reverse engineering, and we did an autopsy on it. And then you go in front of Congress and you're like, and they say, does the government have a UFO and aliens? And you say, yes, you're not lying because somebody told you that. You didn't see it. There's no evidence of it. But
you would think that you would be able to possibly manipulate the situation where when Grush said people have been murdered because of this subject matter, you think that you would be able to delve into that deep enough. But
yeah, you don't think
says it.
The follow-up to that should have been who? Like, what other question is there to ask other than who the hell's been murdered over this? When, where, what, why?
And I can't talk about that in an open session. Okay, but at least we should have some follow-up with this at some point.
But how could he not? Why would that be top secret if somebody was murdered? If it was top secret, that means that it was a legitimate program that's been classified. Not that it's a rogue operation. Like if it's a rogue operation, you can talk about it all day long. That's why it's there's so many contradictions here. But yeah, I think that they should have. I don't know. I'd like to see him. I'd like to see it happen some days. If somebody really get in there and grill these guys, I don't think it'll happen. I think they'll just be like, well, I can't talk about that. You'll see a lot of edgy answers like Elizondo's good about. Can't talk about that. It's classified. I'll tell you later off the record. I'll tell you in a closed setting. Let's get in a skiff,
Right.
That's not going to help us. But
I want to know who has the franchise to build the skiffs. That's what I want to know. Now, look, I was just smacked around a little bit by our producer. We're
absolutely
mere seconds from being out of time. Manny, it's been a great pleasure to have
Thanks,
you
Manny.
back.
Thank
Always
you.
good.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
And we're gonna have you return. Please keep us informed what you're up to. If anybody comes by and shoots up your house, let us know. Yeah. And with that said, Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific Time, 8 Eastern, UAP Crossfire, right here on KGRAdb. That's it for tonight, guys. Have a great one.
God bless Sam and Dean Winchester.